In this episode, we look at how society impacts our health. Get excited because this is Tiny Leaps, Big Change. Welcome to another episode of Tiny Leaps, Big Changes, where I share simple strategies you can use to get more out of your life. My name is Greg Clunis, and in this episode, we're looking at the role that the larger society we live in, the world that we inhabit, how it affects our health, how it affects our opportunities, and of course, how it affects our personal development. And this is important because sometimes, no matter how hard we try, we just can't break a habit. Whether it's a serious addiction or a pet peeve, changing our health behavior isn't easy. No matter how badly we want to change, it's natural to struggle, especially when there are obstacles standing in our way. Now, before we jump right into the episode, let's take a minute to pay our bills by thanking today's sponsor, Blinkist. It can be hard to find the time to sit down and learn. It's not easy when social media is designed to be so addictive. Well, there's an app for that. It's called Blinkist. Blinkist is for those of us who want to learn but don't have the time. They take the key ideas from over 4,000 nonfiction bestsellers in more than 27 categories and turn them into 15-minute text and audio clips that help you learn the core concepts quickly. Use the blinks to get into a topic fast or find new topics that interest you. You can even use Blinkist to get the key ideas from some of your favorite podcasts. I like Blinkist because I consume a lot of information for this podcast, and honestly, it's tough to get through everything. Blinkist makes it easy to cut out the fluff and get what I need. And Blinkist has a special offer just for Tiny Leaps listeners. Go to Blinkist.com/tinyleaps to start your free 7-day trial, and you get 25% off of a Blinkist premium membership. 2 books I'd recommend is Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker and Start With Why by Simon Sinek. So head over to Blinkist, spelled Blinkist, Blinkist.com/tinyleaps to get 25% off and a 7-day free trial. Today, we're going to be talking about the social determinants of health, or in other words, social factors in our communities that affect how healthy we are. In a society where we're so used to quick fixes, the social determinants of health expose deeply rooted problems that aren't always obvious, especially to those of us who are more privileged. Understanding social determinants can give us a broader understanding of where we can begin when it feels like there's just no getting around a bump in the road. How healthy we are is actually determined by much more than the things that we do and the decisions that we make. Outside of our individual behavior, there's social factors that impact our health. These include how economically stable we are, our access to quality education, our access to good health care, the built environment that we live in, such as parks and sidewalks, and our community resources. Much of this boils down to accessibility. Here's an example of what I mean by that. When fresh produce is only available in the next town over and public transportation is unreliable, it's much easier to walk down to the dollar store for cheap and unsatisfying frozen meals, even though the fresh food is healthier and it might not even be that much more expensive. It's just not accessible. Now, an ad campaign about how important it is to eat fruits and vegetables in this area of town wouldn't be nearly as effective as setting up a farmer's market would be. And as far as economic stability goes, living paycheck to paycheck greatly impacts our ability to make healthy behavior choices. When we live in a state of fight or flight, our priorities are different. It's more difficult to worry about whether or not we're making healthy choices when an unexpected expense could completely put us underwater at any moment. And in addition to economic stability, it's important to consider what our access to education is. Someone with free, quality education often struggles less than someone with poor education or someone who went to a school district with very limited funding. Encompassed in education is the concept of health literacy, which is basically how much we understand health concepts that impact us. In other words, you don't know what you don't know. When access to resources that explain things in everyday terms instead of overcomplicated medical terminology are limited, many of us just go without the knowledge. And as a result, our health suffers. Education access often goes hand in hand with healthcare access. It's no secret that healthcare is a hot topic among politicians. Some of us can go to the doctor when we're sick, while others of us haven't been to the doctor in years. Insurance red tape and stipulations make things difficult. Medical bills are no joke, and when we're already struggling, many of us are hesitant to add another bill to the pile coming in each month. And the truth is, our built environment affects our health in a more discreet way. Do you walk to the store, take the bus, or drive 25 miles? The way our reality is physically built has a big impact on our health. Communities with parks, sidewalks, bike lanes, and farmers markets often have a much healthier population than communities with rundown bus stations and no fresh produce for miles. Altogether, the resources that are accessible to us affect how healthy we are in a way that is outside of our everyday control. We can't build a sidewalk on our own, and we can't use resources that just aren't there. So what do? Well, quite honestly, we can vote. Local elections are more important than some might think. Research which politicians in your area support the things you care about, such as funding education or protecting parks. It would also help to look into what developmental projects might be going on in your area, like new highway construction. We can learn as much as we can when we can and share what we learn with the people that we care about. Having the access to resources that help us make healthier decisions, it's a privilege. And so instead of beating ourselves up for the path that we're on, we can be more gentle with ourselves. Because sometimes we're swimming upstream, and instead of judging others for the path that they're on, we can consider the fact that we don't know what obstacles they had to face. Health disparities are all around us, even when they aren't obvious. By being kind and acknowledging when our privilege exists, we can use that privilege to make the world a more equitable place. And this is such an important topic because I think many of us look at personal development, look at our health, look at our choices, and we just focus there. And this podcast tries to put the focus there. It tries to put the focus on what we can do to actually create change in our lives rather than worrying about all the things that we don't control, which there is so much of. What is it that we can do in our day-to-day lives to actually make change? But the truth is, the bigger factors, the economy, the environment we live in, the people that we're around, they matter. They have a massive effect on where we end up and on the opportunities that are in front of us. So let's not ignore that. In the process of trying to be better in our day-to-day, let's not ignore that. Let's get the knowledge that we need. Let's go online and research what it is that matters to us, and let's vote or run if we feel up to that, or whatever it is we can do to actually create change in that local community so that we can have a better shot at creating change for ourselves, but also so that the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people in your area can also have a better shot. And it really just comes down to, are we willing to take that initiative? So thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. Today's episode was written by Sophie Sumter. Of course, you can find the link to her Instagram in the description of this episode. Thank you again for being here. I've been Greg Clunas. If you haven't already, find the podcast over on Instagram at Tiny Leaps or on Twitter at Tiny Leaps, and let me know what you think about this episode. And with all of that said, remember that all big changes come from the tiny leaps you take every day.